Good morning students, this is 11th class biology, lecture 3 of chapter 2 biological classification, and today you will learn about kingdom Protista. So these are general features of the organisms under kingdom Protista. First is kingdom Protista includes single cell eukaryotes. So we can say that Protista organisms are simplest type of eukaryotes. Okay, these are simple type of eukaryotes because these are made up of single cell. Protists are primarily aquatic, means mostly these are found in water. It forms a link with plant, animals and fungi. So some of the characteristic of Protista are similar to the plants, some are similar to the animals and some to the fungi. So they forms a link between all these. Then cell contain well-defined nucleus and other membrane-bound organelles. As these are eukaryotes, that's why a well-defined nucleus is present and also other membrane-bound organelles are present because these are characteristic feature of the eukaryotic cell. Some have flagella for the movement. Okay, presence of flagella is for the movement, or cilia. Cilia are small hair-like structures which can be present on the body, and these also help in the capturing of food or in the movement. Then Protista reproduce asexually and sexually. So mode of reproduction can be asexual or sexual by a process involving cell fusion and zygote formation. So when the sexual reproduction occur in Protista, it will be by the gamete formation and zygote formation. So there will be formation, and after that fusion of gametes and formation of zygote. Kingdom Protista have these 5 main classes. First, chrysophytes, then dinoflagellates, euglenoids, slime molds and protozoans. So we will start with the chrysophytes type of Protista. So what are these chrysophytes? They are found in fresh water as well as in marine environments. Means they can be found in ponds, rivers or marine water like sea and ocean water. They are microscopic, very small, and float passively in water currents, and these chrysophytes are called planktons because these are very small and these can float passively with the water currents. Most of them are photosynthetic. They can prepare their own food. It includes, chrysophyte class includes diatoms and golden algae. So you can say diatoms and golden algae make phytoplanktons. These diatoms have siliceous cell walls, means their cell walls are made up of silica, and for these siliceous cell walls form two thin overlapping shells which fit together as in a soap box. As in a soap box, there are two parts which can fit together. Likewise, cell wall of diatom also has two parts which are called overlapping shells which can fit together. Now cell wall deposit of diatoms, because this cell wall is made up of silica, so it is indestructible, and over the time it will deposit. Okay, so cell wall deposit of diatoms over billions of years in their habitat. And what is their habitat? These are mostly marine, so sea or ocean. Okay, so these will deposit in the water bodies over billions of years and is known as diatomaceous earth. So what is diatomaceous earth? Deposit of cell walls of diatoms, and this is used in polishing this diatomaceous earth, or you can say cell wall deposits of diatoms, is used in polishing, filtration of oils and formation of syrups. Then diatoms are chief producers in the ocean, as diatoms are phytoplanktons. Okay, these are known as phytoplanktons and these are photosynthetic. So they can produce their own food and work as a source of food for other organisms which are living in water. Okay, like plants are primary producers on the earth. Likewise, these diatoms are chief producers in the oceans. Now next class of Protista kingdom is dinoflagellates. These dinoflagellates are mostly marine, means these are found in sea or in ocean. And these are also photosynthetic like chrysophytes. They appear yellow, green, brown, blue or red depending on the main pigments in the cells. As you know, color of cell is due to the presence of a specific pigment present inside it. Like green color of chlorophyll is due to the presence of you can say green color of the chloroplast is due to the presence of chlorophyll inside that, right? So here, due to presence of different pigment inside the cells, the color of dinoflagellates will be different. So they can be yellow, green, brown, blue or red in color. Cell wall has stiff cellulose plates on outer surface. So as you can see here in the diagram, these are cellulose plates. So their cell wall has cellulose plates on the outer surface. Now most of them have two flagella. Most of the dinoflagellates have two flagella. One lies longitudinally and the other transversely in a furrow between wall plates. So these two flagella are, you can say, these are at 90-degree angle to each other. One lies longitudinally and other transversely. And where these are present? In a furrow between the wall plates. So these are wall plates and this line you can see here, this is a furrow. Okay, so these flagella are present here longitudinally and transversely. Then red dinoflagellates. Example is goniolax. Okay, red dinoflagellates means which are red in color, and an example of that type of dinoflagellate is goniolax. These red dinoflagellates means goniolax undergo rapid multiplication. It's rapid means high rate of reproduction they do, so that the sea appears red. So when the number of goniolax increase, what happen? Color of sea becomes red because this dinoflagellate is red in color, and due to this red color of sea, this is called red tides, and toxins released by such large numbers of these red dinoflagellates can kill other marine animals such as fishes. So these red tides are harmful for other marine animals. Now next class is euglenoids, mainly freshwater organisms found in stagnant water. So these are mainly found in fresh water and these are found in pond water, stagnant water like in pond. Instead of cell wall, they have a protein rich layer called pellicle. So these do not have a cell wall, but they have a protein rich layer, and that layer is called pellicle. As you can see here in the diagram, this outermost layer, okay, this is diagram of euglena, one of the euglenoid, and this outermost layer is called pellicle layer. So this is protein rich layer. It makes their body flexible. So cell wall is absent and this flexible protein rich layer, which is called pellicle, make the body of the euglenoids flexible. They have two flagella, as you can see in the diagram. This is one larger size main flagella, and on the side of it this one shorter flagella is also present here. Okay, so they have two flagella, a short and a long one. They are photosynthetic in the presence of sunlight. So you can see the green color of this euglenoid, of this euglena. So why this green color is there? Because of the presence of chloroplast. Here you can see chloroplast is present inside the euglena, and this chloroplast contains chlorophyll, which make its color green. And because chloroplast is present here, so you already know the function of chloroplast. So its function is to synthesize the food. So it is photosynthetic. So you can say in the presence of sunlight they can make their own food. Okay, they are photosynthetic. So you can say in the presence of sunlight they behave as autotrophs because they can make their own food. But when deprived of sunlight, means when sunlight is not present, they behave like heterotrophs. So in that condition, these will not be able to make their food, and these will be called heterotrophs by predating on other smaller organisms. And which type of heterotroph they will be? They will be like the predators. So they will eat other small organisms, and that kind of behavior is called predating behavior. Okay, so they will act like the predators and will eat the smaller organisms. The pigments of euglenoids are identical to those of higher plants. Now you can see here this green pigment, this green color. This is due to presence of chlorophyll A, and chlorophyll A is also found in higher plants. So you can say that pigments of euglenoids, which pigments? That is chlorophyll A. So that is identical to those found in higher plants. An example is given here, that is euglena. So let's do once again the structure of this euglena. This outermost layer is protein layer, that is pellicle. Then here you can see nucleus is present. Then these are chloroplast, which are useful for the photosynthesis here. And then this contractile vacuole is also present here. Because you need to make this structure, so you need to know about all the parts. Okay, this contractile vacuole is present here for the excretion purpose. Then this is stigma, a type of receptor. Then these are two flagella found in the euglena. Okay, and this is the structure of euglena which you need to make. Now next class is slime molds. These slime molds are saprophytic protist. Saprophytic protist means which obtain their food from dead and decaying organic matter. So the body moves along the decaying twigs of the plant and leaves engulfing organic material. So the moving body will engulf the decaying twigs and leaves of the plant. Okay, that decaying twigs and leaves of the plants are organic matter. So they will convert that complex organic matter present in the twigs and leaves into simple inorganic matter and will obtain their food as the saprophytes do. Under suitable conditions, they form an aggregation called plasmodium. When the conditions are suitable for their growth, then what will happen? They will form an aggregation, and that will be called plasmodium. So that aggregation will look like this, and this will be called plasmodium, which may grow and spread over several feet. Okay, so this plasmodium can be so large, so big that it can spread over several feet. During unfavorable conditions, the plasmodium differentiates and forms fruiting bodies. Now, when the conditions are unfavorable, plasmodium will differentiate and will form the fruiting bodies. Fruiting bodies are the structures which bear the spores. Okay, like these are the fruiting bodies. Okay, and these bear spore-like structure inside them at their tips. Okay, these spores possess true walls. These spores have the walls to protect them. Okay, they are extremely resistant, and because these true walls are present here, so due to that these spores are extremely resistant resistant to the unfavorable conditions, and that's why they can survive for many years. The spores are dispersed by air currents. Now, these spores can be dispersed by air currents to the distant locations also, and when the favorable conditions will come, then again these spores will germinate and will form the plasmodium. This plasmodium is different from the malarial plasmodium. Okay, this is a plasmodium which is an aggregation of slime molds. Okay, this is different from the malarial plasmodium. The next type of protist is protozoans, and protozoans are heterotrophs. These cannot make their own food, that's why called heterotrophs, and in heterotrophic mode of nutrition they can be predators which will feed on the other smaller organisms, or these can be parasites, means which will live inside the host body and will obtain their nutrition from those. So these can be predators as well as parasites. They are believed to be primitive relatives of the animals. Means they are related to the Animalia kingdom. Some of the features are related to some of the members of Animalia kingdom. Now these protozoans are divided into 4 major groups, and these are amoeboid protozoans, as you know about the amoeba here. Okay, this is amoeba like structure. Then second group is flagellated protozoans, okay, in which flagella will be present. Next is ciliated protozoan, one is shown here. Then sporozoans. So these 4 are major groups of the protozoa. Now let's start with the first type of protozoans, that is amoeboid protozoans. As the name indicated, amoeboid protozoans mean amoeba-like. And you have already studied in your previous class about the amoeba structure. So see here, this is amoeba, okay, and this is one of the example of amoeboid protozoans. Okay, these live in fresh water, sea water, or moist soil. So what is their habitat? They can be found in fresh water like river or pond. They can be found in marine water like sea, or these can be found in moist soil. They move and capture prey by putting out pseudopodia. So these feet-like structure present here, as you can see, these are called pseudopodia. Pseudopodia means false feet. Pseudo means false, podia means feet. So these are called false feet of the amoeba. Okay, and with the help of these false feet, amoeba capture their food. Okay, so you can say this pseudopodia help in the locomotion of amoeba as well as in the capturing of food by amoeba. Marine forms have silica shells. Okay, so amoeboid protozoans which are found in sea or ocean water have silica shells on their surface. Some are parasites. Example, Entamoeba. The complete name, you can take example of Entamoeba histolytica, a type of protozoan which is found inside the intestine, okay, which acts like a parasite and cause the disease when enter inside the intestine. Okay, so amoeba, these protozoans can be parasites also. Next type of protozoans are flagellated protozoans. These flagellated protozoans are free living or parasitic. Okay, means the parasites which live inside the body of host, or these can be free living. Okay, means they will live themselves. They don't need any host for their living. Okay, so they can be free living or parasites. They have flagella. As you can see here, this is a flagellated protozoan and this flagella is present here. Okay, and what is function of flagella? For the movement. So you can say these are motile type of protozoans, okay, because these have flagella. Parasitic forms cause diseases like sleeping sickness. Okay, example is trypanosoma. So trypanosoma is a flagellated protozoan which when enter inside the human body cause a disease, and that name of the disease is sleeping sickness, because one of the symptom of that disease is the longer time of the sleeping. So that's why this disease is called sleeping sickness, and this is caused by the trypanosoma, and this trypanosoma live as a parasite inside the body. Next type of protozoans are ciliated protozoans. As the name indicated, cilia will be present here or the body. So what are the characteristics? These are aquatic, means found in water, actively move using cilia. If the cilia are present on the body, so what is function of those cilia? These will help in the movement of these protozoans. They have a cavity called gullet that opens to outside. As you can see here, this is an example of the ciliated protozoan called paramecium. Okay, this paramecium have this cavity gullet. Okay, this is called gullet that opens outside, and this gullet also act like a you can say a mouth-like structure. These cilia help in the movement of this paramecium as well as in the food capturing, and that food will be transported up to the gullet, and then from here that food enters inside the paramecium. Okay, so this gullet acts as a feeding organ also. Now, due to the movement of cilia, when these cilia will move in a coordinated manner, water with food enters into gullet. So when the cilia will move, what will happen? If there will be any food in contact, then food along with water will also move along with the cilia. Okay, and will reach to the gullet and will enter inside the paramecium. Now these are some other parts of the paramecium, because you need to make this structure also. So see here, this is an anterior contractile vacuole, and you already know the I have told you function of contractile vacuole. So here also contractile vacuole helps in the excretion. This is food vacuole where food is stored. Now these are two nucleus present in the paramecium. In the paramecium, two nuclei are present. One is larger nucleus, that is called macronucleus, and one is smaller in size, that is called micronucleus. Always macro word is used for the larger, so macronucleus, and micro for the smaller, so micronucleus. So these two nuclei are present here. Now this is pellicle membrane, as it is found in the euglena, which is protein rich. So this pellicle membrane is also present here in the paramecium. This is posterior contractile vacuole. So as you can see here, these are two contractile vacuoles, anterior as well as posterior. Now these are cilia all over the body. This is cytoproct and this is gullet. Now next type of protozoans is sporozoans, and these sporozoans are this like structure. Okay, they have an infectious spore like stage. Infectious means the stage which cause infection, okay, which cause some disease. So infectious stage is spore like stage. As you can see here, this is a spore like structure. Okay, so the spore like stage is infectious stage. Example is plasmodium. So plasmodium, which cause malaria, is a sporozoan. Okay, and that has a spore like stage in their life cycle, and that spore like stage is responsible for the infection in human being that cause malaria. So this plasmodium is called malarial parasite here. Now based on today's topics, your homework is NCERT question number 3, 4 and 6, and also make the diagram of paramecium, euglena and amoeba. Now let's discuss the answer of question number 2, NCERT question number 2, that I gave in homework in previous lecture, and the question is state two economical important uses of heterotrophic bacteria and archaebacteria. So answer is about the heterotrophic bacteria. They act as decomposers and help in the formation of humus. Okay, decomposers means that which will decompose the dead and decaying organic matter. You can say which will convert the complex dead and decaying organic matter into simpler inorganic substances. Okay, and it will help in the formation of humus. They help in the production of curd from milk. As I gave you an example of lactobacillus, that is a heterobacteria. So you can say this is also an economic importance of the heterotrophic bacteria, that they help in the formation of curd from the milk. One more importance you can tell here, many antibiotics are obtained from heterotrophic bacteria, and many soil bacteria help in the fixation of atmospheric nitrogen also. Like I told you, some nitrogen fixing bacteria and rhizobium, nostoc, anabina. Okay, so all these bacteria help in fixation of nitrogen. So there are many economic importances of the heterotrophic bacteria. Then archaebacteria. Archaebacteria help in methane gas production from the dung of ruminants by the methanogens, because in the ruminant animals dung methanogen is present. Okay, and those methanogens help in the formation of biogas, that is called methane gas. So that methane gas is a useful gas for the human being. So we can say this is an economic importance of the archaebacteria. Second thing, methanogens or means a type of these archaebacteria also help in sewage treatment, means the wastewater treatment. In wastewater treatment also these methanogens are helpful. These also convert that sewage means the debris present inside the wastewater is decomposed by the methanogens, and methane gas is produced from that by decomposing that debris in the sewage.